Hello, yes, my people. Welcome back to another episode of the Navvai Shift. This is a show where we explore how founders are turning technology and artificial intelligence into real world transformation. Today, I got my co-host Damari, and today we're joined by Daniel Cohen Dumani. He's the founder and CEO of Experio AI, and the company is pioneering agentic AI for consulting and professional services. Daniel, how are you? You okay?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here, Joshua and Damai. Thanks for having me today.
No, it's a pleasure to have you on board. And would you be able to give us just a brief intro to yourself and what it is you are doing at Xperio AI?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Daniel. I'm the founder of Xperio Labs, and we are bringing to market the first agentic AI solution for the consulting and professional services industry. That ties actually really good with my background. I've been in technology consulting for over 3 decades. Started my career with a large consulting firm, then bootstrap a small boutique consulting firm called Portal Solutions that I sold to an accounting firm in 2018. And that's when I realized that, access to knowledge in the world of consulting and professional services, it's still a big challenge today. We've been talking about knowledge management for decades, but we still haven't solved that problem. And really that brought me to becoming obsessed with this problem and wanted to solve it. Wish I had it when I was a consultant and leading consulting teams, but now I'm going to give it to other consulting organizations.
Nice, amazing. And that pain point, how have you found it trying to tackle it?
When you work in consulting, what you learn is that consulting is all about selling your experience and your expertise, right? So think about, consultant, they sell what they've done, how they've done it, and they can do it better, faster, and cheaper than you doing it yourself, right?
Mm.
But the challenge you have when you're in even a medium-sized consulting firm is there's no catalog of all your experience. There's no catalog of your expertise. And that experience and expertise changes every day, right? So if you had a catalog or database, it's outdated the next day. But more importantly, nobody has the time to actually sit back and say, we just finished this 6 months project. Let's write down all the good things we've done. People don't have time. They move on to the next project. So what you're left is you don't have the tools and you're not marketing yourself or selling yourself properly because you're not able to trace back or connect the dots. And, how do people do it today? Well, they rely on humans, us, right? And when I was leaving and exiting my previous consulting firm after I sold it, I realized that people keep asking me questions. Well, do you remember 3 years ago we did this and why? Where can I find the documents? And I was like, yeah, go here and you'll find it here. So I realized that I was the human dot connector essentially. And I felt like, you know what, AI is mature enough so we can do it using AI now.
Amazing. And of course, along the journey, you tend to have peaks and troughs, as we call it in the UK or in London. What was like the hardest part about stepping away from consulting to build a tech product literally from scratch?
Yeah, yeah. Good question. I mean, obviously I left a cushy job, right? I was being paid well. I had a great team, a team that I built over 15 years, so a lot of loyal individual that work for me that I'm still friend with today, right? So I think leaving the community I built was hard. Um, but at the end, I'm a technologist, right? And when you reach a certain point in consulting, you get removed from doing the day-to-day technical work. And that was really something I was aspiring to do. And frankly, artificial intelligence is giving us power today. As a startup founder, I'm a trained software engineer, but literally I haven't done software in 10 years. So whatever I knew and was trained is already outdated. But AI gave me those superpower, right? Where I could go back to coding, testing, architecting, right? And using that, my foundational training and reset myself very quickly. So Dan was leaving, something that I've done and be used for and going into something that's unknown, right? It's starting a potential high scale business is scary to a certain
Mm.
degree.
No, 100%. And I definitely think in that space, you kind of have to have that risk appetite that not many people actually have. But I know in definitely the consultancy space, a lot of consultants who are building software struggle to kind of get early adoption inside the same conservatives that they from the firms that they used to kind of advise for. So how did you overcome that barrier and what did you kind of see when you was doing your initial pilots?
Yeah, so we have a couple of pilots going on now. One that completed was very successful. The biggest barrier that we found, I was suspecting that would happen, but I was surprised to the extent, is this concept of trust, right? And that's been a barrier for AI adoption for the last couple of years, right? We've seen, can I trust this system? We're bringing in a novel, new approach to the marketplace to solve that problem. And I think people are skeptical, right? I use like the same other AI tool that I use that I can trust because they hallucinate. So how do you bridge that trust barrier, right? And the biggest lesson learned for me is that it takes time, right? And it takes showing people specific example of one thing they're doing manually today with humans, right? And by the way, humans aren't perfect, right? We're not 100% right, maybe 90% right, or 92% right. So if can bring an AI that's as good as the human, if not slightly better, then I think you can bridge that trust. So what we used is, hey, show me how you're doing it today, and let us show you how you can get the same results, literally the same results. So we took a task that took 3 weeks, and we show it we can do it in 1 minute, right? And we compare side by side. And I think we've done that a few times to show now you can trust it. Look, we've proven you that we can replace this cumbersome, lengthy task into something that's immediate, right? And that built the trust, right? And I think that trust is continued to build over time.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely feel like in this space, especially in AI space, is once you kind of show a client the data and the comparisons, it's kind of very hard to ignore. And I think it leads from them being hesitant to actually realizing that this is the only logical option to kind of move forward and actually to progress the business and to where wants to go.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Daniel, just quick one. You mentioned hallucinations. Is that something you're seeing a lot coming up in your industry at this precise moment in time?
Yes, we do. We do. I think, back to that trust concept, I think there's been many examples over the last 2, 3 years around, how dangerous it can be to just use AI without a brain, right? Essentially, right? It's taking whatever, you know, Gen AI is giving you as a given, right? And I think that when you start learning, and I did that, I went through that journey myself of how does those large language model work? And once you start understanding it, then I think we try to educate our client as well. Large language model is just a massive guessing machine. Just gonna guess the best answer. And 40%, 50% of the time it's gonna be accurate, and maybe 50% it won't be. Maybe it could be 60 or 70, right? But it's a guessing machine, right? And I think the approach we've taken is to remove the guessing, right? To say, all right, we're going to have a solution that gives you an answer, but we're going to show you the trace, and we're going to show you the traceability on how we got to that answer. And because of some of the technology we use, we're able to do that, trace back an answer. And I think that reduced the level of hallucination. That is the fear that people have. They all heard about those public cases of people doing something and trusting it blindly. But I think it should bring back to people the concept of, look, humans are not perfect. If someone gives you something, better be skeptical and verify that it's right. The same is true with an agent, right? If an agent gives you something, maybe they spend 5 minutes looking back and forth, but just verify that it's right. If you can, if you're able to.
And that's what I think that's what's important. I think is kind of making sure that that knowledge gap is bridged between yourself and a client for them to have clear insight into worst cases, best cases, and complete
Yes.
transparency along the road. Definitely, definitely. And I kind of want to touch on what exactly is a digital brain in your building, kind of, and how does it differ from the AI powered searches?
So, the vision we have is to solve this knowledge crisis in professional services. So we are creating what I like to call a digital brain of your organization, which means a brain that can immediately recall everything you've done, right? Your experience, your expertise, your subject matter experts, documents, best practices, contracts, reason on specific item that you need to be able to do your work into the consulting world, right? So the way we've done it that's different is most traditional AI tool that use what's called retrieval augmented generation, which is, hey, ask a question, let's go search either the web or search your internal data sets for something that looks similar to what you're asking, right? They all look at similarity and they do that semantically, right? So they're not just guessing, but they're trying to understand what you're saying and look at semantic similarity in the repository they're searching, which means no real reasoning, no real inference, no real capability to understand the concept and the domain. What we're doing is different. We're saying, look, we're going to build a solution that is vertical and specific to one industry, in this case, consulting and professional services. We've trained our algorithm to understand vocabulary. What is a contract? What is a statement of work? What is a best practice? So that when it finds those documents, it knows what to extract, right? And then we are pre-extracting and reading every piece of content that you're going to go through our system. We're not doing when you ask the questions, we're doing it ahead of time. So there's like an onboarding time where we have to ingest everything, and then we have to do it on a continuous basis. So that's sort of the different approach. Our approach is cost a lot more, right? Because you have to read everything. But the result is we've extracted all the terms and terminology and concepts so that when you ask a question, for instance, give me all the projects you've done in the Northeast of the United States in financial restructuring in the past 3 years. We're going to give you a precise, exact answer, right? Because we've collected all of that information and put it into this brain. And all we have to do is traverse the brain to find the answer.
No, that's extremely impressive, I must say. I know one thing about consulting firms, they live on the intellectual capital. And I think it's really sad that a lot of companies are still operating email chains and SharePoint folders, and
Exactly.
on a long-term basis, it's not really feasible, is it?
It's
Why
not.
why why do you think that knowledge management has stayed broken for so long, out of curiosity?
I think, and that's when you think about technology adoption, right? So you'll see the same pattern for the last 30 years, right? And people take a long time. They used to do what they used to, don't want to change. So there's a change management challenge. I think the specific problem around intellectual capital in consulting firm is that most of it is in the form of unstructured content. Bunch of documents, 100-page report, which are not easy to just read, understand, and extract, right? So, ever since Copilots kind of came out, right, and Microsoft has their version of Copilot and Google has their version of Gemini Workspace, right? Now you can use a Copilot to give it a few documents and it's going to give you extraction of summary. They can do it on a few documents. They can do it on hundreds of thousands of documents at a time, right? Um, so why it's taking so long? I think it's technology. It wasn't there 2 years ago. By the way, what we're building today could have not been done 2 years ago, right? It wasn't there. I think, you know, GPT model level that came in, call it December of 2023, was sort of the inflection point where people realize we can now use large language model to read document and extract concept. It's hard to believe it's only been 2 years, right? But it's been so at that inflection point was the time where we realized, oh my, we can build a solution now that will change knowledge management upside down and remove that reliance on human to tag the content, to put it in the right place. And the Mari, right? People put in SharePoint in the wrong folder and nobody can find it, right? And if you want to search, you have to know what you want to search, right? and otherwise you won't find it, right? So that's sort of, so change management and inflection point in technology is making it possible today.
Yeah. And I think if we kind of take appreciation in how quick it is moving, because we just touched on ChatGPT 4 was first released in December 2023, and the speed that it's going since then is definitely remarkable, I must say. But I kind of want to speak on the other side and the flip side of things. How does it within consultancy, and of course I know you've been there for several years for sure. So how does the information chaos hurt project margins and delivery speed in real terms?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you think about it, there's been a lot of study done, both in the US, but I'm sure in Europe as well, around the time wasted in organization for hunting for information. And I think on the professional services industry is roughly about 30% of the time. When you think that you spend roughly about 12 hours a week hunting for something that exists in some sort of digital form, you just don't know where it is, right? So that is a massive waste of time. You know, for a mid-sized company, it could be millions of dollars a year, right? So there's a time wasted in terms of hunting that information, not finding it, and that's really what we're after, right? That improvement of, you're gonna waste less time, which obviously you can then spend more time in providing quality to the client as opposed to quantity and be stuck in time, right? Because I've been in consulting, most projects have a budget, right? Is even if you're fixed price or time and material, you just shouldn't exceed that time, right? So if all of your time is wasted, a lot of your time is wasted hunting, you have less time doing quality research, human amplifying, using your brain as a human to do things that AI can't do yet, right? So massive, you know, improvement in margin for sure, right? But also bring a risk, right? Because you're not going to deliver things faster. So depending on your business model, that has a potential to also hit you in the back, right? Because if a task that used to take 10 hours now take you 30 minutes, but you're billing by the hour, right? You can see what it does, right? You're gonna generate less revenue. You have the potential to generate less revenue if you're not adjusting your business model. So that's a big problem. But from a it's not just margin improvement. We're hoping it's also sales and revenue improvement. One of the feature we can do with Xperio is mine your data on what project you've done for client like this, but you haven't done for those clients, and it's the same, right? How can you mine your data to upsell? Can you mine your data to sell better, to deliver better proposal? Because now you're articulating your real experience. So both profit margin improvement, but also potentially revenue improvement too.
Amazing. So you would have had many projects done. Um, and with many projects that you have worked on, has there been any like standout projects that like still ring a bell in your mind today? And it's like, I like telling this story.
Yeah. I've done many projects. I mean, one of them I remember was for a large museum, right? And we did a lot of work back in the days in SharePoint consulting, right? So we were consulting on how to use SharePoint to push it, over the edge, right? If I can use that term. And we essentially built both a backend but also interactive solution that has some kiosk, right? And there was a touch kiosk, and that was in, gosh, almost 10, 12 years ago. So it was early on the touchscreen technology, but you were interacting with a SharePoint backend through kiosk in a museum. It was very cool project, and very interesting to offer physical element like consumer and visitor using this to find digital artifacts. So it was almost a knowledge management solution with a kiosk consumer interface to it.
Oh, nice. No, it's incredible. It's incredible. And in terms of like, because what you're saying, like this is huge. Like this is good stuff. And how is it people tend to find you? Like, what are you doing to put yourself out there?
I've been attending a lot of podcasts and speaking at conferences. That's been sort of a good way for me to speak about how passionate I am about, solving this problem. And And yeah, people have found us through podcasts. I post a lot of newsletter and thought leadership on LinkedIn by trying to talk a lot about this problem, and it's resonating well. But there hasn't been any consultant I've talked to that has told me I don't have that problem, right?
Yeah.
And it's very acute, right? So clearly it's hitting the nail in a real problem. But yeah, it's clearly challenging today because there's just so much noise, right?
Yeah.
Felt like podcast is a great way to just have a casual conversation talking about this with you guys. So
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think even from the conversation, I can definitely see the passion you have on actually solving this problem. So, in my career, I actually did have a small spell in a consultancy firm, and I kind of want to get more insight. When you talk to a firm leader, is there like issues with technical integration? Because I know a lot of consulting companies, their information is everywhere, filled with legacy tools. How do you get
yes,
that leadership buy-in to actually clean their data and get it all in the right place to actually for you to execute what you need to do?
great question, Damari. So there's multiple approach. One is obviously one our vision is you don't need to clean up your data, right? Let AI do that for you to the extent of being able to do that, right? It can't clean up everything, but it can do quite a bit of things in terms of being very selective in what content we bring in. There's a human element to it. You have to tell us where do you think we can find that data set? Like I give you an example. If one of your use case, Demar, is to get contract intelligence, you have thousands of contracts with different clauses in compliance, nightmare. And we're going to ask you, Demar, tell me where can we find contracts for the last 20 years so we can look at them? It's probably going to be in 4 different places, right? And by the way, in those contract folder, people put everything, proposal and this and that, right?
So yeah, a lot of nonsense.
So we build a way to just get through the noise, right? But we have to connect to those data sources. So we have to identify them. Our approach is sort of a step-by-step approach. Let's pick one use case. Let's focus on this. Let's show you the value, and then we'll expand to add all those data sets. Otherwise, we're going to spend months trying to not integrate it because integration is easy, but it's the client won't know where things are, right? And they will think it's here, but the user will say, no, no, but there's this and this and this, because nobody has a clue, which is part of the problem, right? They don't know where things are. But essentially, we want to connect to your CRM system, your ERP, time and billing, right, to get that structure, system of record information. Then we want to bring all of your data sources that are unstructured, your document management system, could be in SharePoint, in Google Drive, in Box, in Confluence, in Notion, wherever it is. And we're going to put all of this for a machine and filter all the noise and get what's important for the leader of the organization to be able to answer a question. So for us, it's really start is what do you want to know that takes you days or weeks to answer today? That's really where we start.
It's kind of just making sure just honing in on that main pain point, and these are the things that are keeping founders or leaders up at night. And if you're able to mitigate that, then yeah, it's your prayers answered in some ways. But I was going to ask Daniel, where do you see human judgment still being irreplaceable in this space?
You know, we have quality of human that I strongly believe the current generation of AI won't be able to replicate, right? Judgment, instinct, empathy, do things that requires us to make decision. Often, as a leader, I make decision based sometimes on my gut, right? I hate to say it, but sometimes it's a gut decision. You get data, but it's like how you feel about it, right? And sometimes you can explain why. It's just a judgment call. A lot happen like that in consulting, right? A lot of time is understanding this human connection, right? That won't be able to be replaced anytime soon.
Mm,
You can replace a lot of the analysis research down the road, but I think that human connection of reading someone, seeing their face when they talk, right, is something that is still irreplaceable. So I feel like in the world of consulting, it's clear to everybody that the consulting of the future will be a firm that is AI powered, has an army of AI agents doing things that are boring, that in the past, when I started my career a long time ago, I just wrote PowerPoint for 2 years, right? So that was my job, reading documents and summarizing them, right? I mean, you can see that that job is gone, right? I mean, nobody needs that, right? So I think that, and by the way, while it was interesting, yeah, after a month, I was like, all right, so what's next, right? So I think that there's a clear side that the consulting of the future will all be about how do you present yourself, understand your clients, keep that human connection, and amplify yourself with the help of AI. Not replace you, amplify you. That's really my vision. And that's what we're trying to bring with Xperio is that amplification where you're not like you have superpower, right? You can do a lot of things with a very small team and do it very effectively with high quality, right? And really focusing on that human interaction.
Yeah, I absolutely love that terminology, amplify, because I think that's also one of the reasons we actually started this podcast, because our main goal was to give people insight that AI isn't here to take over, but it's here to complement. And the people that use AI to complement what you're currently doing are the ones that are going to be successful or still not in the grave. Their business won't be in the grave in 5 years from now. But I was going to ask, from like the last couple of years, and you're having these conversations with leaders, do you feel that do you still need to kind of give them more knowledge in the AI space, or do you feel like they're quickly starting to understand that they need it within their business?
I think everybody by now understand they need it. What they don't understand is what they need and why they need it too, right? I think I've seen two approach. One is executives say, we have to have it. A competitor are going in AI, we have to go in AI. My first question is, all right, why? What do you need to do? What problem are you trying to solve, right? And that's always where we want to start is what is keeping you up at night that costing you so much that if you solved it will have a great return on investment, right? That's what you need to look at. At the same time, what's been fascinating with AI is to see, you know, a, a change in the way that people experiment with technology. It used to be very top bottom. The CEO will go to the CIO and say, you have to do this, new ERP system, and it will trickle down and everyone will go and running. Now, what you're seeing is people in the trenches saying, "Ah, I don't want to do this. This is boring. Let me go use my AI to do it." And frankly, I just read a statistic in the US 40% of employees say they've been using AI without being sanctioned, meaning their boss didn't know, right?
Yeah,
So, which means people have found ways to say, I'm using it at home. Why can't I use it at work? I'm going to use it and not tell anyone, right? Which is very dangerous, of course. But you're seeing experimentation happening, right? Which means I think people are going to start demanding, saying, I've done this task forever. I know it can be replaced by AI. I want to do something else. Give me some agents that can do this. So I think we're seeing some acceleration, yet many organizations we talk to are way behind, way behind.
yeah. So how would you say you're tackling that go-to-market education challenge when you're actually having those conversations? Do you feel like, because of course, as you mentioned, there are a lot of companies that are still behind, but do you kind of go in there to give them clear insight that they need to understand what their main user case is for AI and then what can be done to essentially mitigate that? Or do you feel there's different dialogue you have to kind of give them and having that conversation?
Very few people come to us and say, I want to do AI, I mean consulting. I think they come to us and say, I think I have a problem with business development, right? I'm not effective. I'm spending too much time writing resumes from scratch and bios from scratch and writing proposal content that is explaining what we've done for this and this, right? So they come with some ideas. They don't know the solution, but they come with some ideas. Can Xperio solve this problem? Right. And if the answer is yes, it's a fit, we can solve it, then we can start having conversation. That is what we've seen. But often we also need to educate, right? People know that we're doing AI for consultants. They're intrigued. They know they have to move there. Sometimes we have to come in and educate and bridge the gap, right? This is the problem we can solve and then discover with them what problem they have. And by the way, before we do a demo with any prospect, that's what we do. We never demo a product if we don't understand their problem, right? Because we want to show them something tangible.
Yeah. And with that, when you are showing them something tangible, would you say it's very specific and tailored to what they have highlighted to you? Makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It has to be, right? I mean, we want to be as relevant as possible. Of course, we can give you demos and they're generic, but when you see it with, one of the challenge with AI is that we're also trying to solve is we're saying we have an AI that speaks your language. And what I mean by that is if you said to my, what industry we have the most work in the last 2 years, you want Xperio to give you the list of industry that are relevant to your organization, not just industry that it's in LLM, right? So, we want it to be relevant. Understand your division, your practice, your department, so speak your language. So we spend a lot of time giving our clients the ability to configure this language, right? Because there's no way the AI can figure it out on its own. So it's never going to be right. And by the way, sometimes you go to the website and say, oh, that's your industry. But they say, no, 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 that's how we put it outside. Inside, this is how we're defined, right? So you see that gap. So that's really what we're trying to tailor it so it speaks their language as much as we can.
That's amazing. I really appreciate that insight, Daniel. So I was gonna also ask, how do you see the consulting landscape evolving over the next 5 years, would you say?
There's a lot of talk online and, at conferences about what is going to happen to the world of professional services, right? Because again, professional services is about bringing experience that was hard to master, right? If you're an attorney, you go to an attorney because you want them to give you something based on their experience, what they've done, and their knowledge. But when you think that if you go to GPT-5 or Gemini 2.5, it contains the entire world knowledge ever created in digital form, right? Which means it reads and understands a lot of contracts. And clearly, by the way, I'm using my AI to review contract first before I go to an attorney now. I don't need to. And I'm going to go to the attorney and say, what do you think about those two things? Which means my attorney only spent 5 minutes. I don't need to spend 3 hours. I only need your advice on that 5 minutes. So when you see what's happening is this, right? Is in one sense, people would say, what do I need consultant? I don't, right? I can go, if I'm a SharePoint consultant, I can go on Perplexity or GPT-5 and say, you're a SharePoint consultant, tell me how I can solve that problem. And you're going to get a great answer, by the way, right? I think consultant will remain and change in the way that they're not going to just do. They're truly going to advise, but they're going to be used when a company needs someone else to make a decision. This really was the essence of professional services. You don't want to make this decision on your own for whatever reason. You're not comfortable. You need someone else to make that decision for you. And so that's going to change. So the nature of using services will be about confirming what an AI gave you or confirming that I need you to come in and do something for me that will be too complicated in my organization to do it on my own. Even so I could, which means less work, much faster, and think about services company will have to become software company because they are going to deliver their service digitally. I'll give you one example. As a consultant, and Damari, you probably will relate to that. We spend a lot of time doing discovery. A client comes to us and say, hey, wait, we need 2 weeks to understand what your problem is. And the client will tell you, no, 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 I know what it is. Here it is. And we're going to say, no, no, no. We're consultants. We have to come and do discovery. And discovery include, we're going to meet with 20 people. We're going to read 100-page documents. You read it. And then we're going to give you a report. This is our discovery report. Think about this and how can you do it better today? You can have a voice agent that can interview 1,000 people 24/7. Based on the interview, we can give you all and summarize all the interview report, give you a final report of, I've talked to 1,000 people in your company, and how much did that cost you? Nothing. You have to build a solution, but then after that, there's no cost. Where interviewing 1,000 people in a company as consultant, it's going to cost a lot of money. You're going to have to have 50 people spend 100 hours of talking to 1,000 people. So you can see now that as a services business, you have to rethink your business model. Where you're going to use technology. And when I say they're going to become a software business, they're going to become a business that assembles software solution to deliver their services. And the human's going to amplify this and give you that human feel.
Yeah.
But most of the work will be done by agent. Now, is it happening next year, 10 years from now? Who knows? I think adoption will probably be slower than we think,
Hmm.
but it is definitely happening.
I definitely agree with you. But on the point of course, professional services and, of course, consultancy, in my opinion, kind of from my own experience, I feel like it's definitely very client relationship driven.
Yeah.
And how do you feel like technology and AI is going to reshape that sort of relationship with the client?
I had a great example, Damai, and I'm glad you asked this question. As a, partner in a large consulting firm, my job was to meet with key clients every quarter. And I remember going into a meeting and I asked my team and said, team, give me a report here so that I can talk to the client, right? I need to be, I was not completely aware of day to day. And they give me a report. I'm like, all right. So I'm telling the client, hey, client, yeah, we've done some great work. This is the things we've done. And the client looks at me and say, Daniel, how about this? I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Right? So essentially, my team didn't prepare me well. Shame on me, right? Um, but here's how AI is going to change it. One of the features we have in Xperio is called the client briefing agent. And I ask Xperio, I'm about to meet with this client. Tell me everything I need to know. What happened the last 3 months, what project we work on, what issue we had, what risk we have, how we're doing against budget. So I can go and I gain that information on my own, right? Again, for the same principle of consulting team are busy delivering. When you ask them to do something else, it's hard, but that impacts your day every day. And that's a great example. So I think AI will help you have better client relationship because you can really tell the client, and you know what? Hey, client, we work with a similar client like yours, and this is what we've done, right? Because AI told me, hey, you can upsell them on those 3 things that we've done for this client, and here's a case study, and come very well prepared.
I think it's just down to the insight overall, though, isn't it? Like, I think
Yes.
AI can give you the more insight than a lot of
Yes.
humans can, and that's where I think it makes a big difference for sure. It's amazing what you're building, though. So honestly, it's very, very impressive because I think even for myself, kind of understanding the business a bit more from today's conversation, I definitely can see why a lot of companies will be looking to adopt this. And in the days, I think it's about them getting from point A to point B, and that's what's going to make the differences from the ones who survive and who don't.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we have a broad vision where we want Xperio to become this operating system of the services firm of the future. And there's really 5 pillars. One is the foremost, and that's what we're working on today. To be an AI-driven company, you have to have a good institutional memory, right? It can't function without good memory. And for us is structural memory of everything you've done. That's really what we added today. But we also have to have domain knowledge. So I've talked about vocabulary specific. We understand the world of consulting. You have to have trust and traceability. And you also have to embed AI in everything you do, not just a chatbot where you can ask questions. It has to be part of how you deliver your services down the road, right? So when you think about this, those are the tenet of what we're building. We're the first one, really, of the first two, domain and organizational memory or institutional memory, which is the foundation of a consulting firm. It's the IP. So we're structuring all the IP so you can be use it to be efficient. But then you're going to be able to put it to work in everything you do because you'll have an AI that really is based on what's unique to your consulting firm, which is what you've done, how you've done it, for whom. That is not public knowledge. That is hidden inside your vaults, right? And having access to that is what's gonna make you thrive and be successful in the future.
Yeah, no, I totally do agree with that for sure. But no, it's definitely exciting. So kind of, I know you just kind of stepped in it, but where do you see Xperio in the next year then?
You know, we're still early in our journey. Started building literally a year ago. Launched our minimum viable product MVP earlier this year. We have a handful of pilots going on. One client we hope to move in production. It's a pretty decent sized consulting firm in the next few months. Our goal is, look, we're going after organizations that see the value of AI today, which is they know they have a problem and they're willing to fix it. Our goal within the next year is to have dozens of clients using Xperio every day and able to say, look, you know, what used to take me 3 weeks take me 30 seconds today. And now I'm able to take it as a human and just put it to work. So I can actually put my best foot forward to serve my clients. That's really what got it.
No, that's absolutely amazing. That's I'm kind of blown away by this conversation. I think, Daniel, I think you were this close to poaching my co-founder Damari from this business. If
No,
you
a little bit. In all honesty,
generally think if you went any more, if you was pitching him any more, I mean, yeah, I think he would have packed his bags and yeah, he would have jumped ship and he would have sent you a message on LinkedIn.
yeah, I would have gave you my CV, Daniel.
I wouldn't that to you, Joshua. I wouldn't do that to you.
We appreciate it.
It's been a fantastic conversation, guys. I
Amazing.
really enjoyed it.
Amazing stuff. And for people that wanted to find out a little bit more about Xperio AI, where can we advise them to go or to reach out to you? Where can we advise them?
Yes, so our website is xperiolabs.ai. You can find some info there, sign up for a demo. Obviously, you can find me on LinkedIn, D. Cohen Dumani. I like to talk. I like to engage in conversation. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and tell me what you're up to.
Perfect stuff. I'll make sure that I will link that in the description below for people so people can reach out to you. And I'm pretty sure once they see this YouTube podcast, they'll also reach out to you and highlight what gems that you mentioned during today's conversation. So yeah, I want to say thank you. It's been a lovely conversation. And yeah, guys, that's been another episode of the Navvai Shift. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you,
Thank
Daniel.
you. Cheers.